internet land. Welcome to Sends and Suffers podcast. I am your host, Mario Stanley. Today we have Devin on the show. He is a rapper based out of Portland, works at the Nike climbing gym, currently in Indiana, staying with family, riding out this whole pandemic that all of us are in. Devin is a rad dude, but before I get into Devin, I need to throw some love to some very rad people. My sponsors, Beyond Clothing. These guys have been sponsoring me since before I was me, that is here talking to you today. They've been the number one people as far as brands, big companies that have been in my corner. And I can't tell you how much their clothing has made a difference in my adventures. You got to be comfortable, you got to be cool, and you got to trust what you have in order to send. If you guys get a chance, go to Beyond Clothing, check them out, beyondclothing.com. Use the promo code ALWAYSREADY. You'll save a little coin. A little bit of that coin helps me in production and helps me help other people do rad things. But let's get into it. So Devin is a local rapper in Portland, as I said, works at the Nike climbing gym. He is a head route setter. He is a coach. And most importantly, he is a kindred spirit and a brother that has been in the game as long as I have been. And it is so nice to hear someone have some shared experiences, especially someone who matches your preferred pronouns, he, him, black, male. So guys, enjoyed the conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. We're going to be talking about coaching and just kind of two brothers just vibing. I really enjoyed our previous conversation. I think it was really awesome. And I think it was really rad. And I'm very happy we started talking about coaching because I think that's like, I think you and Chris said something very important on your previous podcast. It's like, there is so much information on coaching and rock climbing out there that it's just like a sea of vomit. Like there's just so much out there. And I think what people don't really talk about is coaching from the perspective of the coach. And I know Chris talks about it a little bit and it's like of the coach coaching the athlete, but like, what is the thought process that goes through the coach's mind every day? Like, what are we like when we're walking into there? Like, how are we assessing these situations? How are we looking at that? And then how are we trying to create like these genuine aha moments with our customers, our clients? And I don't think that, maybe I haven't listened to it. Maybe it's on Neely's thing. Maybe it's on Chris's thing or anything else. But like, I don't think that's actually talked about. And to me, that is like that is a send and a suffer because like, you just have to go into coaching every day expecting to lose and expecting to win in a couple things. And like, so what I always tell my kids is like, hey, okay. And every time I'm like making moves or assigning movements, we call them coaches moves or move assignments or limit bouldering. There's a million different names, but, I always tell my kids, I'm like, all right, this is gonna be real theoretical today. So everything I make up might be way easy or stupid hard. Or it just might be the dumbest boulder you ever come. But I need you to just be cool with me and let me experiment and let me try some new things. And most of the time I think the kids are like, yeah, let's do this. But I think that's like a thing that like coaches have to be okay with. And I think people think that we like just magically make these moves up or we have like this secret little book that like we have like a million different, like I have a book that has 400 different V4 boulder problems on it that I can make for you on a spray wall. Which one am I going to do today? That shit doesn't happen. It's just more of like, I don't know. I'm going to shut up here for a second, but like, I know for me, it's like, I definitely like, I assess my client when they walk in, their mood, their overall energy, and that's it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, damn it. Like, I really want you to do this today. But like, you are just not in the freaking headspace for this. And this is just not going to work out well. And so you kind of got to change your whole game plan, or you can still do the same thing. It's a whole nother approach. And I guess, do you find that a lot with your adult clients or with your kids or kind of both back and forth? Like, what are your experiences like in that like mental prep part? Like in the parking lot, about to turn the car off and about the game is on.
Yeah, I think like when I approach coaching, I'm coming from a perspective of I want to know what my goal is for that day, but it also largely depends on what the people are feeling, like kids and adults. I think in general, with kids and adults both, I kind of take a Socratic method of like, I'm not going to give them answers. I'm just going to ask them questions and try to get them to ask questions. But, you know, it really does, like, the best thing I can equate it to is like going to a party, knowing, I'm telling you this from a rapper's perspective, going to a party knowing that people are going to ask you to freestyle. Because you're like, okay, well, I need to have something ready, but I'm not going to be able to prepare fully. Like, it's not going to be a scripted thing. It's just going to have to be a back and forth, a conversation. Because with freestyling, like, for freestyling to be really effective, man, you can't just recite something that you've written. You have to be able to point things out that either happened that day or something that's in the room. You know, you need to be able to think on your feet. And that's how I approach coaching, is I take that mentality of like, okay, I'm prepared in the sense of I have experience doing this, and I have like an itinerary to follow, but I may not necessarily follow it. I mean, a lot of times, like, dude, even at the Nike Rock Gym, we have a way, like, things we're supposed to teach. Sometimes I just look at it and I'm like, okay, and I put the book down and I'm like, we're going to try some of this. And if I see it's not working, we're going to switch. We're not going to talk about that. I'll tell you, like, the very first experience I had with coaching kids was actually pretty terrifying because I was working with a very small group of kids. It was 3 kids, but these 3 kids were going to nationals. And the head coach was like, I want you to spend the next month working with these kids and get them ready. And this is, you know, mind you, I have no experience with coaching kids. I don't know. I just have my experience teaching adults. So I was terrified, and I wrote out a program, and there were some days where I would try weird shit, dude. Like I remember this one exercise I had them do where they were doing systems training, and I had, there were 3 of them, right? So one of them was climbing. Another one would be balancing on like an endo board, and they would tell, like, when I pointed to a hold, they would be balancing, and then they'd have to say, like, left hand to the blue crim while they're balancing. So it's like they're trying to focus on 2 things at once. And then the third one's
clever. That's real clever.
It was just, yeah. And like, so some days I felt like that was a pretty successful exercise because they were systems training. They were working on like hand-eye coordination and being able to focus. And then, you know, there was time for them to rest. And then I would have some days where I'd have them do like a power endurance exercise, and it was way too hard, and they would just get destroyed. And I would just feel like, shit, I fucked that up, you know? But there's no way of knowing that would be successful or a failure, because I could have them do that same exercise a week later, and it could have been totally fine. So I think I just very early on learned to accept that as a coach, the point of being a coach is not to always do what's best for your kids or your adults. Like, it's to try, but you're just naturally going to fuck up because you're a human being. So the point is just to be a source of support for them and kind of guide them as they go through their successes and failures. And really, I think personally, just stepping back. A lot of people want direction in rock climbing. They want to know how to do it, quote unquote, right. And you're probably starting to see a theme in how I think.
Yeah, but I don't think that's not a thing. Right way. Yeah, that's not a thing. Mm-hmm. So I've had a kid tell me that, and he's just like, "Tell me how to do the boulder," you know. And I'm like, I always relate it to I relate it to cooking, and I'm like, I'm like, have you ever cooked food before? And they're like, yes, like something. They're always like, no. And I'm like, have you ever made macaroni and cheese? I'm like, yes. And they're like, every kid has made macaroni and cheese at least once in their life for themselves. If you haven't, you haven't lived. And I always tell them, like, okay, so do you add any salt and pepper in your macaroni and cheese? And they're like, no, but I've had it with it. And I'm like, well, how much salt do you know to add? He's like, I don't know. So why don't you add a little bit? And this is how rock climbing goes. It's a little bit of salt. Okay. Maybe we'll add a little bit more pepper this time. Yeah. Maybe we'll add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. But like, there's a phrase that I've said for years, and rock climbing is a tremendous amount of failure, especially bouldering. Bouldering is a tremendous amount of failure for one glorious moment of success. And you just ride that high. Yep. And actually one of my very first podcast with my homeboy Malik, much love to you. He talks about sending his first 12A outdoors at Fujimata. And he's like, dude, we recorded that podcast maybe like almost like 4 maybe 6 months after that thing. And he's like, I'm still riding that high to the very end, you know? And I think like, I don't know, man. I think that's like a big thing with it too, is like, I think kids and adults and like people say they understand how much failure is about to happen. People say they understand like all this work is going to happen, but it's like when you're telling people like, and Chris says this all the time, you know, he was like, well, how long have you been strength training? Well, man, I've been doing it like 2 weeks. And I'm like and I'm, you know, and I every coach on the is listening to his podcast. It's just like, oh my God. You know,
like you haven't even gone through it yet. Sorry,
yeah. I always tell my clients, like, it's like in order for like really like metabolic adaptation for your body really to adapt to what you're doing. If you haven't done minimum six on average, but it's 6 to 8 genuine sessions of your workout that has been written for you. Like if you kind of like do a couple things and then you post your workout and not do your workout, that day doesn't count. You got to write that day off. But if you haven't done like 6 to 8 genuine sessions, it is very hard for anyone to see any kind of improvement. And if you've done 12, like you're moving, like you're gaining. And that's like, you know, 2 days a week or 3 days a week of a general fitness program, you know, and I think for climbing, the same rules apply. It's like you've got to put at least X amount of sessions just in to see the game changes. And like, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, 100%. And also like, I mean, I love what you just said because it's so true. People will be like, I'm not seeing any gains. And they'll be like, what week are you in? And they'll say, yeah, like 2, 3, maybe 4. And it's just like, you don't even really. The other thing I try to tell people is you're not going to see the real gains until after you do the training, because the rest and recovery is where the gains happen, not while you're ripping your body apart, you know, like, and if you I think that the power of rest is something that we as Americans don't take advantage of, but especially rock climbers, I feel like they think that you're just supposed to grind and tear your body apart. But what about like letting it rebuild? You know, any good trainer will tell you, you have like a 6 to 8 week cycle and then you have 2 weeks off or 2 weeks of low intensity, you know, kind of just climbing around for fun, maybe doing another sport, and you'll come back and you'll see, oh wow, like I am stronger. But it's just people just always want to put their hands on things. Like they always want to feel like they're doing something tangible. And that's just not how rock climbing works, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it does boil down to, you know, people get Sen fever. It's just like, you know, in Everest or wherever people say they're going, they get Sen fever and they just want to get to the top so bad. And it just never works out.
Nope. And the other thing too is that I've been telling a lot of people at Nike this is like if you don't enjoy everything that leads up to sending a route, then you really probably shouldn't be setting goals to projects, because if you think of it this way, like you know how you say like you get that send and you ride that high, right? Let's say your goal is to climb whatever grade you want to put into it, and you spend 6 months getting ready for the outdoor season training, and you hate every second of it because you don't like training, you don't like the process of projecting, you don't like failure. And then you go and you do send the route. You know, you're trading 6 months of misery for 10 seconds of validation, because guess what? Once you do that route, you're going to probably celebrate honestly for like, you know, a few minutes. And then you're going to go, well, thanks to our culture anyway, you're going to go, okay, what's next? Like if you do a 12A, you're going to be psyched and you're like, all right, now I need to do a 12B. And so like, I just try to really tell people it's great to have goals, but you really need to enjoy the process. Like I love bouldering because I love the process of falling off of something and then going, what could I do differently? And just the like walking through it is what I love. Of course I love sending things, like that's dope too, but I just try to tell people like, you know, you have to love rock climbing for what it is. And rock climbing is like 1% sending. It's like, why would you, is there anything else in life that you would do that you only enjoy 1% of? It'd be like having a job and being like, I hate everything about the job, except for when I first log into my computer. Like I really like that part. So I'm going to stick with this job because I like that one piece.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Job.
That is so like true. Yes.
So like, why? That's just how I try to tell people. And that a lot of people, it goes in one ear out the other, and that's fine. But I just really think that to be successful at rock climbing, you have to enjoy the whole shebang, not just the glory part of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's like, it's just, yeah, man, you stated it earlier in the previous show. It's like most people, what do they want? They want to be able to watch Chris Sharma do a bunch of climbs, and then they're like, all right, Chris Sharma did this. I'm ready to like just freaking go to town. Let's just do this thing. And then, in all reality, like that's just not how it freaking works. Like it doesn't work that way. And I think we're saying something. I think we're saying something that isn't new to a lot of people and a lot of seasoned climbers. I think what people don't do though is like when it gets hard and when it's like when it gets hard and when all that stuff happens, that's when it gets hard, you need to teach yourself how to start enjoying it. I think that's basically the way I want to say that. Like that's what really needs to happen. Oh, but yeah, I don't know, man. Coaching is wild. So I guess now, are you still coaching more? Or are you setting more now?
I think it's like 50-50 right now. So when I went to the Nike Rock Gym, I was mostly under the guise of being a setter. That was the main reason I was hired. But I think I kind of said this last time we talked, we all kind of do everything together. So we all help write the programs, run the events. Like we do the whole thing. And recently I've actually kind of backed off on how much I set, and I'm really much more into like the teaching side of it. And I'm starting to get to work with kids again. It's just tougher because, there's not like a climbing team like there was before. So I'd say like 50-50 I'm setting and coaching.
So wait a minute, there's not a competitive team or a recreational team at the Nike Rock Climbing Gym? I'm saying that right, Nike, right?
Yeah, the Nike Rock Gym. There used to be one, but there isn't now. It's a relatively small, pretty small gym. And, obviously Nike does not overtly invest in rock climbing. Now I say that, but also when I moved to work there, they just redid the wall, and it's an amazing wall now. And it's small, but yeah, there's not a legit climbing team. And I just think that's just because there used to be one, and we just haven't really had much attention on that part of it for a little while. But yeah, I mean, it's an awesome place.
So if you don't mind me asking, why did the team fall apart or just stop to exist? Because I only say that is there's a gym here in the area at Dino Rock, and it's a great gym. It's been around forever. It's a little bit of, in its name, Dino Rock, dinosaur. But it is still a fun place to go and rock climb. But it's one of those things that gym has historically had a hard time keeping a team. And, Ryan Anthony's, Ryan Sewell, some major players came out of that gym. So it's able to produce good quality talent, but at the same time, it's why has it never been able to retain it? And I was just curious, why do you feel that, why did the team end? It's just out of curiosity.
I think that there's a couple of reasons. I think one is just that, the Nike Rock Gym as a whole has seen it's changed hands quite a bit. People don't tend to work there that long. It's much more of a entry level job for people tend to work in the fitness centers there to get jobs elsewhere. And, I think that's part of it. So I feel like high turnover rate, and, the people that are invested in it don't stay forever. And I also just think in general, it's just not something. I mean, Nike as a company hasn't really, outwardly embraced rock climbing. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm trying to how do I say this without sounding bad and end up getting fired? But yeah, they just haven't really said okay, climbing is a priority for us. We're going to put more energy into it. And, I think a lot of that is that they don't think it's popular enough, or they don't think there's space for them. But I think there is like perfect space for them personally. So yeah, but that's just me doing conjecture. I know that like one of the people who used to run the climbing team is really big into USA climbing. Like they have a really big role in it. I can't remember what she does exactly, but yeah, like I think once that went away, like the team kind of dissolved, and now it's just like we just don't have the resources to really keep a team going. I would love to see a universe where that changes, so hopefully it happens.
Now, when you say Nike, are you talking like at the actual shoe company Nike? I just now realized that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this thing exists. Okay, when you kept on saying it, I was like, man, that's such a weird name for a gym. But,
oh yeah, no, I mean it. Yeah, it's so the gym is on the Nike World Headquarters campus, which is out in Beaverton, which is a suburb of like just outside of the Portland metro area. And the reason you don't know about it is because they've intentionally kept it secret. And honestly, I don't even think I'm allowed in some capacity. I'm probably not even allowed to talk or post about it. But I kind of because I haven't been explicitly told I couldn't do it, I just know that it's been kept secret. I kind of just want to talk about it anyway. I mean, it's very difficult, as you could probably imagine, to go to like the Setter Showdown or some clinic and people are like, where do you work? And for me to be like, nowhere, No, I've been telling people I work at the Nike Rock Gym because I think it's dope. I think it's a really cool thing. And yeah, it is for real. Like it is on the World Headquarters campus. It's a legit climbing gym. It's beautiful, like state of the art. We have really good route setters. I'm one of them. And we just, it's just for some reason, I think obviously it's a big company, so it wants to keep things secret, but I don't know. I mean, and
that makes sense.
That's how I look at it anyway.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I only say that because I've always wondered, with the climbing shoe game, I'm like, Nike, where have you been? Like
that's what I'm saying.
I'm saying. So, hey, Nike, if you need some love, you need some people to help you out, I'm available. I will make myself available. Just throwing it out there.
That's what I'm saying. And I think they know that they could do it. I think it's just a matter of they're looking at it as, this is all, obviously I'm not a white man that runs a big corporation. So this is my perspective, but I feel like they're thinking, one, climbing isn't a big sport. So what, there's not money in it for them. And two, they probably also think that the people who have climbing on lock, like people like Sportiva and stuff, they're not gonna be able to match them in terms of quality or notoriety. So they shouldn't. What's the point of trying to enter this very specific niche market where there's already like domination, and they're not even going to make that much money if they were successful anyway? But there's two. But my counter argument to both of those is, one, climbing is growing way, way, way faster than any other sport, and it's changing a lot more than most sports. And the people who are coming into climbing are not what people think of as rock climbers. They're not dirtbags. For the majority, like they're not dirtbags that grew up climbing in Yosemite or someplace like that. These are like, the majority of rock climbers are gym climbers or people who go outside like maybe once or twice a year, but they're mostly in a gym. They don't know what Patagonia is. They don't know what they don't really care. But I bet you they know what Nike is. Everybody knows what Nike is.
Yeah.
So I feel like if Nike were really thinking about it, they would just capitalize on people who are new and trust their brand.
I think you're right. I think they could easily slay because, like, if you know, like I said, Patagucci, if you know them, those brands. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you, and they probably, well, everybody leaves money on the table sometimes, so I guess that's their bad. But
mm-hmm. And yeah. It's unfortunate. I hope that it changes, just because, like I said, it's not about. I think that they're thinking of it wrong. I think they're thinking they have to compete for a very small audience, but they don't. They shouldn't aim for people that are already like heavy into what they want. They should aim for the new climbers that don't know anything, and they don't have to make the best product, and they don't have to say that it's the best product, but they can intentionally be like, this is an entry level shoe. Like, it's meant to get you through your first year of climbing. Like, the rubber is not still C4.
Black Diamond did the same thing.
And it will. you could just as easily. And I actually think that the technology that went into the Black Diamond shoe is, it kind of looks like the Flyknit material of Nike. So I'm almost certain that there's some cross pollination there. So it's like, why aren't you just going for it? Like it would be so easy for you to enter climbing in the sense of like, yeah, okay, we're not Sportiva, but we're for the again, it goes back to my mentality of like climbing should be for the everyman, and Nike could be that everyman brand for rock climbing. You know, that's supposedly what they aim for in terms of diversity and inclusion. That could be their total shoe in. They already speak about equality in their rhetoric a lot. Like, dude, I'm telling you that this is why they don't let me run companies, because I would have been did this. You know what I mean?
I think, that's a whole nother story, man. And I think that's like why diversity in companies and diversity in companies, those companies always do much better in the long run. And so I pick up what you're putting down.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, I think the way that I'm approaching it is I kind of knew going into it that people at Nike were going to tell me, no, Nike's never going to embrace climbing. You need to accept it. But I'm looking at it as a grassroots sort of approach where I'm going to go around and be who I am and make friends in the industry and show up and be a good person in the climbing world that works for Nike. And that's just naturally going to start the conversation of, I wonder why, Nike's not into climbing. And then, in my world, I would be getting, get more and more people wearing Nike stuff and being in it while they're climbing. And it's just going to be kind of like, I mean, honestly, the case study that I'm looking, it could, like it could be the way that skateboarding became a part of Nike culture. It wasn't, Nike didn't go after skateboarding intentionally. I think it was the Dunk. That shoe just happened to be a shoe that skateboarders like to skate in. So it wasn't, I think Nike, and I could be wrong on this, so if someone wants to correct me later, they can. But I think that Nike saw that skateboarders loved the Dunk, and they're like, oh shit, I guess we should kind of like celebrate this, huh? We should start making, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then it just became a byproduct of the culture already accepting it. So I think that's what needs to happen for climbing. I think there needs to be some product that Nike doesn't necessarily make for rock climbing that climbers end up using in a certain way, and it becomes part of the culture, or a certain person or group or cultural thing that is associated with Nike needs to be brought to climbing first, and then Nike's going to back in and be like, oh yeah, we did that on purpose. Yeah, like we embrace climbing now. Yeah. That's my approach anyway. So I'm starting at the ground roots level of just like start conversations with all the people that I respect in the industry and just kind of getting them to ask those questions to themselves. Like, why aren't they getting into climbing?
Yeah, no. And so, like, kind of doubling back on the coaching theme. So we were talking about like coaching.
Yeah, we got way off topic.
Yeah, no, we're like, I don't even remember where we were. Like, I think we're like, we're off the coast somewhere. But like doubling back to climbing and coaching climbing. So like, I know for me, one of the things I always tell people who like or employees are working at the gym, and we talked about this in the previous episode of like making your way and your path through coaching. I definitely have told employees like, if you start coaching or you start working with people, you will immediately get better in your rock climbing. And I think that's one thing that people don't realize, because they're like, well, I don't know how to coach. I'm like, you're not trying to teach people how to be, Paige Parson or, Hazel Finley. You're really trying to just make people enjoy rock climbing and make subtle changes. And what I always try to tell people when I'm like, when you're first coaching, don't worry about like trying to get them to send the boulder. Just make what they're doing look prettier. And if you make what they're doing look prettier and more fluid, then when you start putting more difficult holds on there, it will be easy for you to tell where the failure in the system is happening, like where the failure in the mechanical system is happening. And that allows you to kind of really step back and, I don't know. I think it will allow you to step back and really kind of look at rock climbing a little differently. And you as a coach, I think you'll learn more. I think you actually kind of take a lot of anxiety off of you. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you from my personal experience, that it's not really about, it's never been about experience or having like a competency in knowing things about coaching. It's more about how you talk with someone and the ways you make them feel. Because you can tell people facts about training until you're blue in the face, but if you can't speak to them in a way that they hear it, it doesn't matter what you tell them, you know. And in that same token, you know, I don't have a background in personal training or, you know, a professional background or I do have a professional background, but I don't have an educational background in it. My background is in architecture. It has nothing to do with training, but I do understand people, and I feel like a lot of my experience and a lot of my success from coaching comes from building relationships with people and understanding people and knowing how to work with them, you know. And I feel like if I had the resources of being a CPT or something like that, I would just be 10 times better, because then I would understand more. But I feel like I'm doing all right for not knowing, like only having anecdotal and firsthand experience with training, and just using my body and my climbing as an experiment. You know, like I'll try different training programs and see how they affect me. And of course, like everyone's different, but it's just nice to know, you know?
Yeah, actually that kind of is like nice that you say that you reinforce that, because I always have a rule, and one of my clients, Rachel Berger, Bergs, the Mighty Burger is what everyone calls her. It's just what I call her, and I don't care what everyone else calls her. But you know, I always tell this, you know, she knows that 9 times out of 10, I have run through the entire workout program that I'm going to run her through, or I'm like, hey, I'm going to be real experimental with you, and we're going to run through this like 4-week program, and we're just going to see what happens.
Yep, 100%.
I think that people just don't think that that's really kind of how it happens. And like, you're kind of figuring this out. But as a coach, and this kind of like segues into my next thing that I kind of want to talk to you about. And we briefly touched on this before, like, and I think this is like our kindred spirit connection between us. But, you know, we both are really self-taught coaches. And I think that's something that like people don't really truly understand. Like self-taught coaching, it's different when you grow up on a team, because when you grow up on a team, there's expectations, there's all this knowledge that you're already, you know, that you have. And, I think when you come into the sport as you and I have, I think what you end up really getting is, this kind of idea to framework of like, and this is, I'll speak for myself. Like I knew what rock climbing was supposed to look like. I knew what I was supposed to be achieving on the wall, and I knew how I wanted to be. Because I feel like I always had a really good ability to kind of step back from rock climbing and envision what I looked like on the wall. And, I think that is what allowed me to kind of like really look at coaching. And, you know, previous sports I've done, track and field, a little bit of wrestling, but track was my main love. You know, I think like, so allowing myself to look back made me realize like, okay, hey, when I'm coaching this person or I'm trying to do that, I'm just trying to improve the way they flow and move on the wall. And so I think a lot of my coaching in the early beginning was mental, along with some basic drills, you know, like your basic 4x4s, your basic blocks and things like that will make people one-footed climbing. All these things will make someone a better climber. But really stepping back and like understanding what I'm trying to see was always kind of like a really scary thing, because I felt like I was wasting my people's time. But in hindsight, what I realized is I was paying so much attention to every single little move that they were doing. And inadvertently, that's what made me, that's what made me a better coach. And it's like slowly over time.
Yep, absolutely. And just like, I mean, even with focusing in and making, like, really being attuned to how a person's responding to something, I think that that's what makes a good coach. It doesn't really have much to do with knowledge. It's more about, again, it's more of a conversation of like, they do something, they tell you how it felt, you tell them some advice in response, they tell you their thoughts in response, they try it again. And like, you never really know what will get through to people or when or how. Like the very first experience I actually had with coaching someone technically was, I told you I started working at the Ball State Climbing Wall. That was my first exposure to climbing. And we had a climbing club, and people were, they wanted me to lead a intro to climbing, like, clinic. And I taught, like, 3 very basic rules about rock climbing. I think it was, like number 1, use your legs, and number 2 is, like, rest. And I can't remember. There was 3 very, very basic rules. And after I was done, I was like thinking, man, I don't know if they even heard what I said. Like, it just seems like I was talking to them a lot. And then I remember someone came to me later that night, and they were like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that, like, I got to the top of the wall here for the first time because of what you said to me. And I just really, really appreciated everything and just like the what you gave to us. And that was really cool. But I think what made it even more impactful for me is I knew that there's no way this person just like took everything I said and absorbed it immediately and then immediately applied it. I think that having a conversation with someone and you know, offering them dialogue and having them ask questions just kind of empowered them. And then they ended up doing it themselves. My goal as a coach is to, and I tell everybody this, my goal is to be like that sensei that like 2/3 of the way to the movie is gone, you know, and they're like, oh, what am I going to do without them? And then they realize they didn't even need you. You know, that's what I want to be. I don't want to be, it's like the teach a man to fish sort of thing. You know, I don't want to be constantly having people come to me and say,
no, you're not doing anybody any favors. You're definitely not doing anybody any favors. Yeah. That's definitely one of the things like in my lesson planning, you know, and I definitely have to, you know, this is actually another thing I want to say in a little bit, but definitely in my lesson planning, like I always tell people like, all right, my goal is to have like 1 or 2 lessons with you a month or maximum 3. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm doing 4 or 5 lessons with you and you're not like going to the World Cup, then like, what are we doing? You know, here realistically, like, I mean, you can give me your money, but you know, you can just buy me a beer instead and we'll be cool. Yep. And I think that's the thing is like with coaching, a big part is like really a lot of it is just talking to them, building relationships and letting them know that like this is going to be kind of a road and a struggle. And this is not going to be one of those things where we're like, okay, like, cool, we do this. And then you start to see results. It's like it's going to get worse before it gets better. And you need to accept that. You need to accept that you're going to have no idea what you're doing. And I'm not even going to be telling you, yeah, that looks great. And you're going to be like, I feel like a freaking buffoon. But it's like I tell the kids all the time, like, if it feels weird and awkward, it's probably right. You know?
Yeah. Because you haven't done it before, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, going back to the self-coach climber, though, like, we both talked about setting routes. That was like the big thing that actually really helped us understand movement. Is there anything else that you felt as a self-coach coach for climbing that you, like a moment or something that you remember that really kind of stood out to you? Like, oh, like this taught me a lot.
That's a good question. I think, let's see. I think that one of the biggest things that I learned was, you know, just a little bit of focus and a little bit of planning goes a long way. So I remember the first time I wrote a training program for somebody. It was this guy named Sam. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he's a really good guy. And he wanted, like, I had this thing at my old gym where I would do climbing assessments of people. So it was very subjective, obviously. But what I would do is I'd have like these sliding scales on a piece of paper, and I would pick out a bunch of routes for them to try. Some of them would be way out of their range, but I would just have them try them anyway. And I would give them like a really quick rundown of things that I saw in their movement, in the way that they approached beta, and like if they got frustrated about certain things. And then I would say, based upon these recommendations, I would say this kind of program or this sort of advice or a technique will help you. And, sometimes people will be like, well, would you just write me that program? And I'd be like, yeah. So I wrote him this strength program, and it was very, very simple. I think he struggled with lock off. I saw that. And he also just struggled with core strength. So I just gave him a really rudimentary, I can't even really verbalize it, but it was very simple. I wasn't telling him to watch his macros and I was just telling him to do these different lock off exercises and do this core exercise once or twice a week. And when you climb once a week, focus on locking off. That was really it. This dude, it's like those Weight Watcher commercials. He lost so much weight in a good way. He lost a lot of weight. His arms turned into cannons. His core strength just got crazy.
Nice.
And I just learned, it was so amazing. The thing that again made it amazing for me was not, it wasn't just the results. It was that I didn't really tell him to do all that much, Yeah. I was just like, hey, you should probably lock off some more, maybe do some V-ups. And 6 to 8 weeks later, he's completely physically, but it's because I gave him very specific, very small things to change. And he focused on those changes and really, really did them. I think as a trainer, we can get into the habit of being like, oh, well, you need to do this. You also need to do that. You need to focus on this. Keep your core tight. Keep your hips in. No, usually with people, I try to tell them, we're going to just focus on keeping your feet on the wall. We are not going to talk about, how to hold a pinch, how to do hang. We're just going to focus on this and this alone for 6 weeks. Yeah. And people just when you give them just one thing instead of 12 things, I think it's easier to make a change that is permanent based off that. And now that what used to be his weakness is now his overwhelming strength. And, now he has a new weakness, I'm sure. And then you would and that's kind of how I approach training too, is in cycles of okay, right now my core is this shit. So I'm going to focus on my core right now. And I just prefer to do that. And one, because it's nice to have variety. I want to always be doing something different, because I could just focus on everything at once. But one, it's confusing. And two, it would just be too consistent for me. And I would like to have variety. So I like to do cycles where I'm right now I'm just focusing on my core, but right now I'd really like to get my pinch strength up, or I just basically follow what I'm curious about. And that's what I try to get climbers to do too, that I work with, is just focus on what you're interested in rock climbing, and just do that for a while. Don't worry about the rest of it. Will just come. I didn't expect him to lose any weight or just jump up in strength like he did. I just expected to balance him, but he just really, I think the small little structure I gave him a chance to just let go and not worry. That's it. He wasn't worried about what to do because he had advice, whether or not it was good advice from me. He had something, and he trusted himself. Okay, well, I have a plan. I just need to execute it and just have fun with it. And the rest just kind of came. So I think just that was the biggest thing I learned from that, is just giving someone a little bit of structure and just telling them now you go run with this. That's where the real change happens,
Yeah, dude, I definitely agree with that. And simple is better, because if it's way too complex, so you remind me of a statement that I say to people all the time. And I'm I'm going to write you a program that is so dirt simple and so easy. You should feel guilty for not being able to keep it up. If I tell you, I'm oh, how's the program going? And if you're not doing it, you're oh man, this thing is so easy. Shit, I don't want to tell them that I haven't been doing it. It's it's not that hard. Yep. But consistency equals gains. That's just, it's flat out. Yep. That's just the math. If anyone wants to know the math to getting better at rock climbing, is, having a plan of some sort, which, I would recommend just see your local trainer, professional. Feel free to reach out to us. We're both coaches. And just being freaking consistent, because it will happen. It's not going to happen the way you want sometimes, but it will guaranteed happen. It's the way nature is. It's the way the laws is. If you consistently do your workout for 6 weeks, you will get better. Unless something goes terribly wrong in between this whole process, you will get better.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I have to cut the conversation short because I have to get to a meeting. But the last thing I do want to say is that, like, that's another reason why when I make my workouts, I try to make them simple and I try to make them short. Yeah. You know, people think you have to be in the gym for hours to be, and then like people, you know, a lot of times when I come to, like, I'm working with someone, I'm like, how often do you, like, when you climb, how long do you spend here? And people will say some wild shit. They'll be like 3-4 hours. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you don't, unless you're just like purely socializing, like there's no reason you should be training for, I have never written a workout that is longer than 90 minutes. And usually my workouts are like really more like 60 minutes. And that includes the warm up. And it's just because you don't need to spend that much time. Dude, like one of the first, and I think part of this is, again, because of Chris Hansen, because the first training program I ever actually did was his Boulder Strong program. And every workout on there was like, you know, you warm up for 20 minutes, you limit boulder for 25, and you hang board for 15. And at first I was like, what the fuck? Like, is this going to work? Like, this is so short. I damn near can like do this twice in a day. But I was like, I trust him, so I'm just going to stick with it. And I swear, man, like that was like a big turning point for me where I realized like, oh, like it really doesn't take that long. And I kind of like that about climbing anyway. Like I didn't want to be in the gym for hours. I came from a background of football, and, you know, you spend forever in the gym lifting weights. And I just hated that shit in terms of like spending so much time. So I love, like, I'm in here, I get my workout done, I get the fuck out. I'm trying to go out for the night, you know, like I have a life. And I think when people see that, like, oh, you don't have to, I mean, you really do have 24 hours in a day. And when I say that, I think I'm saying like 24 hours is a lot of time, and you shouldn't, I don't want to say you shouldn't waste it, but it doesn't take 4 hours a day to get better at rock climbing.
No, it doesn't.
It could even just be a half hour.
No, it doesn't. You know? I'm definitely guilty of being one of those people who's in the gym for 4 hours, but people are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I rock climbed for about an hour into 30 minutes, and then I rested for about 30 minutes, ate lunch, did some work, and then now I'm going to do some core and some strength training, and then I'm done. And then, like, that's like the most it is, because you're taking a legitimate break in between. But I agree with you. Like, if you're just focused solely on climbing and you're just trying to get better by climbing, which is the thing you can do to a certain extent, 90 minutes is really all you need. Like 2 hours tops, 2 hours absolute tops. Yep. Really, like 90 minutes is like really what you need. And you can see a lot happen. Well, I know you got to get out of here. I do, however, want to ask you, I asked you permission last time to play one of your other songs, and 100%. I want to play Synergy on the way out. Just because it's my new favorite jam. And
so awesome.
Yeah. And this little doohaggy allows me to do that. So here you go.
Linkwood means
I'm
rewind,
with
the
it,
gunshot
man.
means forward. We requested it, so
this is so funny to hear. Oh man. This was so fun to make.
way up.
Yeah. So if you guys, thank you guys for listening. If you guys haven't already, please check out his music.
Got a lot of enemies.
Go to Instagram, check him out. That's the one place to find him. Devin, thank you for your time. I know you got to go to work, so we'll talk again soon.
I'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks again for another awesome combo.
Anytime.
I got real ass projects in the Red River Gorge. I got niggas saying they already got on the force. I plan 2 trips a month, 30 weekends in total. Now I'm stuck up in the house and I'm still getting older. I got gym.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening. As you can tell, I had a lot of fun talking to Devin. He is a rad dude. Please check him out, support his music. As you heard, we went out on the track that was straight fire. So check him out, find him, tweet him, talk to him. He's on all the things. Reach out. The previous conversation that we were talking about will be released soon. I am working on a Black and Brown People of Color series, and my goal is to empower you guys with thoughts, information, tools to be an ally that will turn into a comrade. And if you are Black and Brown, or you identify as Black and Brown or other, hopefully these conversations that are coming in this series will make you feel less alone, and make you realize that there's always someone in your corner, and that person is definitely me. So thank you guys for listening. As always, stay rad.